Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Country with the weekly comic book roundup. We've covered a good chunk of Marvel books so far, and an Image book as well as a Boom Studios book. So now it's time to finish up Marvel and start with DC as well. Kicking things off, we've got Amazing Spider-Man number 84, which is chapter 10 of Spider-Man Beyond. Where we left off, Ben Reilly, formerly the Scarlet Spider, basically the Spider clone, has been hired by the Beyond Corporation to be their Spider-Man. A cease and desist order has been served to Miles Morales, telling him he has to stop being he has to at least stop calling himself Spider-Man. He can still do his superhero shtick, just not as Spider-Man. Peter Parker was hospitalized due to radiation poisoning after a battle with the UFOs at Empire State University. Ben, while working with Spidey during the whole thing, was not injured because of the things put into his suit, or enhancements in his suit that protected him from radiation. Dr. Octopus was called in to help Peter by Peter's Aunt May. And Doc Ock did a little hacking into the Beyond Corporation's computers and discovered something interesting, and while he devised a treatment plan for Peter, which recent issues have shown has been working, he has made it clear that he has designs on the Beyond Corporation. And so, the issue begins with Beyond Branch C-47, which is attacked by Doc Ock. Doug, who we met during the Craven storyline, that's where he works, and he is taken prisoner by Doc Ock because, as mentioned, Doc Ock's got designs on the Beyond Corporation. Meanwhile, Ben is doing his mandatory therapy with Dr. Kafka, and we kind of flash back to the odd dream he had where Uncle Ben had no face, just this empty oval. But now, thinking about it more, he could see Ben's face, and he felt a lot better. That night, Ben and Janine go out for date night. However, on the way for Ty, they're interrupted by Marcus, as there's a problem at a Beyond facility that needs Spider-Man to take care of it. It's actually one of the original Spider-Man's foes, so shouldn't be a problem. Turns out to be none other than Doc Ock. But, yeah. What he's after is a small black box in their possession, but Spider-Man tries to stop him. They can't, and it turns out that and Peter's able to nullify Doc Ock's arms, making a joke about ED, which, hey, it's an easy joke to make there. Nothing to be embarrassed. Happens to lots of guys. But it turns out that the Beyond Corporation is something that basically Spidey's put through quite the ringer, which basically causes spider senses to go off, and Doc Ock manages to escape. Maxine Danger, the CEO of the Beyond Corporation, is not happy about this and is beginning to see Ben as more of a liability than an asset. So Ben is tasked with, of course, bringing in Doc Ock. At Beyond HQ across town, however, Doc Ock has arrived to speak with Maxine Danger herself. And the issue ends with men at the door saying that Miss Danger has no appointments, but Doc Ock looking suspiciously similar to his appearance, to how he looked in Spider-Man 2. Expecting something of a surprise, and that is where the issue ends. It's nice seeing the plot points from the .BEY issues being more expanded upon. And I was quite curious to see just where the Doc Ock plot thread was going to go. I have a suspicious feeling that the upcoming Superior 4 miniseries tying into Devil's Reign will also connect to Spider-Man Beyond with the fact that Superior 4 is centered on Doc Ock. Moving on to our next book, though, we've got Darkhold Omega. Where we left off, the Scarlet Witch, in an attempt to keep the Elder God Chthon in his, from basically attacking the Earth, summoned forth a handful of heroes to become the Darkhold Defenders. However, they became the Darkhold Defiled instead, and we got a bunch of one-shots going into their Defiled histories. But Wanda's team, as Doctor Doom tried to take Darkhold for himself, Wanda has teamed with his associate Victorious, and to a degree, Doom himself. So the issue begins. Chthon is summoning his forces and preparing for the invasion. Scarlet Witch and Victorious manage to send the Darkhold Defiled back into Chthon's dimension. They deal with Chthon's army, and then with Chthon himself. Well, they fight Chthon himself, and but they're not alone. There's someone else. An observer, but Doom and Scarlet Witch show up, and the two of them combined are able to defeat Chthon, but Wanda claims the Darkhold is hers, and then uses the power within the Darkhold to unmake Chthon. Say that she is now the true Darkhold. And then upon returning, the Darkhold Defenders are restored to their original states. But Wasp remembers there being someone else, and so she tracks down that one other survivor, who seems to have an artificial floating head following him. The other survivor is James Michael Starling, Omega, the Unknown. And I know it's a name I've heard previously, but I can't remember how or what the context of it was. So I'm guessing that that's a character that Marvel's going to be playing with for a little while. In upstate New York, Scarlet Witch meets with Doom, but it turns out not to actually be Doom, but rather just a Doom bot. And Wanda basically says that what a lot of what she's done is in the past, and someone she'll always carry with her, but she'll never let her have control. And that this is a new page, and from here on, she's free. And that is where the story ends. I don't know. The Darkhold event was kind of neat. I just kind of, I don't know. It would have been nice to get a greater connection between the one-shots, the Darkhold one-shots, and Alpha and Omega. I mean, hell, the versions we see of the characters in the defiled versions of the characters as we see them in Darkhold Alpha and Omega bear no resemblance whatsoever at all to what we saw in the one-shots, and yeah, that's kind of irritating. I feel like if nothing else, it kind of shows a lack of communication between creative team. It's never a good thing. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Wastelanders Doom. Alright, so this takes place before the events of Old Man Quill and Avengers of the Wasteland. Now, in Avengers of the Wasteland, the eponymous Avengers of the Wasteland confronted Doom, and he died of cancer. He had cancer, so yeah. So in Doom's lair, the territory of Dr. Doom, some raiders have found what appears to be an EMP device, which they opt to use on try to use on a Doom bot. It's not actually a Doom bot, though. It's Doom himself, who explains that an EMP that could take out a Doom bot would produce so much radiation that would melt the brains of these raiders. What they've got is a device that emits high-frequency acoustic vibrations and some lights. Not dangerous unless you're a dog or rodent. And he slaughters the group, but there's apparently a town nearby that no one seems to enter or leave. Doom arrives, finds an old woman making rope. She's blind, has no idea who Doom is. But there are magics at play in the area, and so Doom returns later, faces off with some of the residents of the town, and a young woman named Sophia takes Doom to the master of the town. But in order to do so, Doom must sacrifice a memory, and he picks one of what he sees as a memory of weakness. The town's ruler is shown to be none other than Baron Mordo, and Doom defeats him, but realizes what's going on and is able to stop some of the magics. It turns out that the old woman making rope outside the town is none other than Agatha Harkness, and so Doom frees her, which also wreaks havoc on Baron Mordo's defenses. Then Doom kills Mordo, and we learn that Sophia is none other than Sophia Strange. But Doom takes the Darkhold, which is the source of Mordo's power. And, how does he put it? That if she reads a word of what happened there to anyone, she will not belong to this world. It's interesting to note that she did not show up in Avengers of the Wasteland, so she probably realized Doom would probably likely keep his word. But, an interesting take on things. There's most of the references are more to the events of Old Man Logan, as it mentions the fall and death of Red Skull. But the next Wastelanders one's just going to be a weird one to me, because it's Black Widow, and, well, the whole Old Man Hawkeye miniseries kind of cemented the fact that Black Widow was killed when the villains all banded together. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Batman number 119. Where we left off, after the events of Fear State, Batman left Gotham. It's kind of a thing he tends to do after a big victory. He just kind of leaves town because, it's kind of thought that maybe he's not entirely comfortable with being, with everyone thinking, oh yes, Batman saved us, he's our hero. But yeah. However, he didn't just leave Gotham and go on a sunny vacation on the Mediterranean. No. Some members of Batman Incorporated had been accused of murder, and so Batman went to investigate. When he did, the victim was apparently an assassin named Abyss, and it turns out that Batman Incorporated is now being funded by none other than Lex Luthor. But we start with a flashback to when Batman first started, telling Alfred about his desire to use a symbol of a bat to strike fear into the hearts of the superstitious and cowardly. Yes, the cowardly, superstitious lot. But, yeah. But turns out that the country they're in, Lex has actually put a lot of money into, and so he's maybe thought of rather highly in those parts, and so the police open fire on him, but Batman is able to escape, truss up the cops firing on him, and the detective investigating the scene states that Batman preserved the crime scene. But that night, Lex has dinner with Bruce Wayne at a restaurant that he owns in town. So no one will hear anything that they say. If they talk business, and so but apparently with everything Lex has been through of late, he's learned a few things the hard way. The world needs a Superman and it needs a Batman. But Lex says, here's Bruce Wayne without one of his greatest weapons, his family fortune. And apparently he saw that Dick gave the money that Alfred inherited, or that gave Alfred's money to charity, as Lex, like some fool, stating that the boy was always a bit soft. But Lex suggests that Bruce and him examine Abyss's body, which is being held at the police station. He'll be moving to his private secure lab at LexCorp. That way they can be certain, they'll know if Batman Incorporated is innocent, or at the very least if they took out a serial killer. To which Lex states is a win-win. However, Bruce has already left. The body's in the process of being moved, and Batman calls the detective and suggests that she get everyone to the roof. Batman checks out the body. It's not Abyss. It's someone who was shot in the side of the head. 9mm bullet wound. Some residue of Abyss is coughed out, and the room darkens completely. Night vision and infrared don't work. A flashbang doesn't do any much work. Doesn't help much either. But Batman realizes that he can still see himself. But so Batman fights Abyss, who states to not be dead. He also claims to be a creature of the darkness, born in the shadows, just like Batman. He has that the voice in the dark are his only master. He also claims that Batman made him. The detective finds Batman injured from his fight with Abyss. But when she tells him he should leave, he tells her that he can't see, as his eyes are completely black. We have a backup story called "They Make Great Pets." The young girl. It's narrated like talking about a role-playing campaign, but a young girl in Gotham goes to Gotham Academy, is dealing with interesting things. There's bodies and body parts constantly washing up from the Gotham River. But she ends up telling Bruce Wayne that her friend Lindsay's gone missing, and she's fairly certain that it's connected to the river murders. And so, that night we're going to bed. young girl, Catherine, puts on a makeshift Robin outfit, looks into goes to her friend Mia's, and breaks in, only to run into Batman, who's also investigating. Batman pulls her out and basically tosses her to the Batmobile, but they're attacked. Their attackers are heading towards the Gotham Reservoir. So Batman goes after them, and Catherine goes after him as well. It's a fun little backup story. I'm kind of digging it. And I'm enjoying the Batman Abroad story, I guess, as well. I say I guess about how to describe the story. I am enjoying the story. It's a neat little story, and Abyss seems like an interesting villain. It'll be it. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about bringing in Lex Luthor, but I mean, I don't have a problem with the idea of Lex and Batman being enemies, because it actually makes perfect sense. Lex is very much the stereotypical, asshole billionaire Lex is very much the evil billionaire that knows he's making his money off of by exploiting others. Bruce Wayne is, of course, the billionaire who realizes that, yes, that to a degree, his money does come from exploiting others, but he tries to do good with it. So that, that I get the best way to put it. He tries to use the money ethically, so that exploitation has at least gone to something good. That's the best way. That's the best I can think to describe the differences between Bruce and Lex. So yeah, there was a point where there was a real push. I want to say during the '90s to really frame Lex as being just as much a Batman villain as he was a Superman villain. The Bruce Wayne murderer and fugitive storylines were pretty much, if I remember correctly, those turned out to be that was a plot by Lex to get Bruce Wayne out of the way. LexCorp helped to rebuild Gotham after No Man's Land, which did not sit well with Bruce for obvious reasons. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Detective Comics number 1047. This is the start of a new story arc. In fact, I think starting this past week, Detective Comics is going weekly. The story that starts off here is called Shadows of the Bat. So I've mentioned, I know, in previous roundups since, or last few months, and when going over Batman books, Arkham Tower, which is supposed to be a replacement for Arkham Asylum, but more humane, and also raising questions. So we begin with the Tower Tarot card. Disaster, loss, tragedy. That's what I'm here to talk to you about today. A tragedy, like every other tragedy, was preventable. These are the words of Dr. Ware, a week into Arkham Tower's opening. And apparently one person that has been rehabilitated through the various procedures, through the therapies at Arkham Tower, is Nero the 19th, who we saw during Fear State try to take over Gotham by killing Mayor Nakano. And he appears to actually be, no longer under the delusion that he is, the 19th generational heir to Nero. But Kate Kane and Deb Donovan meet up to talk about what's going on inside Arkham Tower. But Batwoman wants to know what Deb's interest in Ware is, and she states that she has inklings. So She goes on to add that she doesn't like miracles. She likes medical progress backed by research, which she hasn't found any. She doesn't like mental hospitals that put on a show. And she'd like to find Ware's medical license, but she can't. And so, Batwoman, it's an exchange of information. Batwoman says the pharmaceutical drug deals are up on the streets, but they don't know where it's coming from. However, the dealers are a gang known as the Party Crashers, who also popped up fairly recently in the post-A-Day pre-Fear State issues of, I think it may have actually been Detective Comics. But Deb notes that the Party Crashers, and the Bat family, they have a connection to Arkham because she thought they were small time, but Batwoman states that they're getting bigger every day, and that yes, they do think the Crashers have a connection. And we see one of the inmates doing an art project involving the Tower tarot card. We then fast forward to Arkham Tower day 24. It's been taken over by patients, and armed cops are on the scene. Members of the Bat family are supposedly inside. Nightwing is not responding. Neither is Spoiler. And Dr. Ware's body, missing a finger, is tossed out of the building. Batwoman's on scene. And Nightwing finally checks it and catches up with Batgirl, Cassandra Cain. When Nightwing checks in, somewhere on the 9th floor, he's not sure. He's pretty sure he saw Huntress in one of the crowds, but couldn't do anything. And he doesn't know where Huntress is. It's hinted though that she's in hiding one of the elevator shafts and is very badly injured. So far, Shadows of the Bat is looking very interesting. Now we got the first part of a running backup story that'll be running through Detective for a little while. Starts off years ago in Gotham City. Guy comes home, distraught. They need to get out of town. Apparently, he was working for the Joker. Things went wrong. Joker shows up and kills the guy in front of his kid. And the kid's mom, too. Batman then pops through, and the kid pulls the dad's gun on Batman, who tells the kid to put it down. The kid tells the cops that a clown and a monster with wings killed his parents. And the boy is subsequently taken to Arkham Asylum for dealing, basically in the hopes that someone there, that the psychiatrist can help him dealing with the kind of trauma that he's just been through, and that is where the issue ends. Like I said, the first part of Shadows of the Bat was very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, and also the backup story was needed. Having parse solicits for the rest of the month, it's definitely going to be an interesting story, and it'll span from the sound of things the entirety of Batman's career, so to speak. Moving on to our last episode, we've got Arkham City, The Order of the World, number 4. Where we left off, the Ten-Eyed Man was at the mercy of Azrael, and him, Azrael, and Dr. Joy all seem to see the ghosts of Amadeus Arkham. Meanwhile, the neighbors of Nocturna and the Phosphorus Man, or Dr. Phosphorus, were beginning to exhibit various signs of radiation poisoning. But Azrael attacks Ten-Eyed Man, cuts off one of his hands. Ten-Eyed Man instructs Dr. Joy to take the skull with her. Dr. Joy goes to see Nocturna and Dr. Phosphorus. Well, she's passing by them, and the two invite her up because that's what normal people do when they see something they kind of know. At the hospital, Detective Stone is being visited by his wife and son. The son has gone to look in on what else is going on in the hospital, but yeah. So Dr. Joy talks with Nocturna and Dr. Phosphorus. Apparently the skull the Ten-Eyed Man gave her is not the skull of Amadeus Arkham, but it is at best about a decade old. Phosphorus chides Dr. Joy for actually listening to the Ten-Eyed Man, explaining that Ten-Eyed Man says all sorts of things. But you can't go listening to him. And then in the hospital, Dr. Stone comes upon Ten-Eyed Man, who informs him that Dr. Joy has been helping him, keeping him safe, as it were. But Dr. Joy learns what's become of Nocturna and Dr. Phosphorus' neighbors and tries to help them. And it turns out that, yeah, their missing dog was eaten by Nocturna. Normal people eat animals, right? But Dr. Joy tells Nocturna and Dr. Phosphorus that she saw the ghost of Amadeus Arkham. And because they also had claimed to, but they at least say, no, we saw someone pretending to be Amadeus Arkham, not a ghost. Elsewhere, it turns out that the ghost is the illusion being made by, maybe perhaps not Professor Pig, but at least somewhat controlled by Professor Pig. And that is where the issue ends. Now, this is a very interesting story, and to be perfectly honest, I think that it's being released issue by issue is detrimental to the story as a whole. I feel like Arkham City would work a whole hell of a lot better if it had just been simply released all at once as an OGN. Waiting month to month for the next issue, honestly, with Arkham City, with Order of the World, really does hamper the way the story flows. So, yeah. Otherwise, it's been really intriguing. It's just that, it's intriguing, but it's not something that sticks, Anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.